Well, actually, the first 20 years of my life, it's the period of my life which I maybe subconsciously tried to forget. My mother was born a beautiful girl. She was, we call white, because if you are light color in Baghdad, you are different than the others. Very rich family. And so she had an educated, she had the chance to get married to anyone she likes. Till one day, when she was, I think about 18, she was going down to open the door at night to one of her brothers who came back late. And those days there was no electricity. So she had a candle in her hand, and her nightgown, the sleeves, caught fire while she was going down the stairs. By the time they all woke up and started to extinguish the fire, the top of her shoulder was burnt. You can imagine now the mentality. They did not send her to hospital because they didn't want anyone to know about the accident. So they kept her at home, and they took a doctor who was not a skin doctor. He didn't know what. He treated her for 6 months, and she was in agony for 6 months, screaming every night, till finally they had no choice. They took her to hospital, and she was treated. The end of it was really that she had a scar, but I mean, the scar was really negligible, very small scar, somewhere that if she has a short sleeve, it's covered. Nobody sees it. So they found my father, because all the ones who were her equal, that's already, they wouldn't consider a girl with a scar. And she cried and screamed, and she said she didn't want to get married with him, and so on and so forth. They forced her. So she married with him, and she stayed with him, of course, and she was a fantastic wife to him, but she had a very miserable life. Can you imagine 6 kids? No refrigerator, no washing machine, nothing in the kitchen, and no money. My mother, as I mentioned, was educated. My father was not. He was only elementary school boy. He knew only to read Arabic. Nice man, warm-hearted and so on, but he was no match to my mother. My mother's name was Khatoon, and my father's name was Khadouri. I was the firstborn, and in our country, when the first boy who was born, then the mother's name and the father's name is changed. My father was called Abu Abraham. My original name was Abraham. Nobody called him anymore his name. And my mother was Abraham. So I was treated always the best. The best piece of chicken is always mine, and so on and so forth. And even my sisters and brothers today, they still tell me, you are still, you are used to it. I say, yes. I remember when I used to come from somewhere when I was already a teenager, my mother used to have a watermelon cut already under the sky to be cooled, and some white cheese. But it's only for me, not for the other kids. That's the way it was. It has pluses and minuses. I'm saying, okay, I'm getting the best and so on, which I did. But it was also a very, very difficult, all my years in life. And there was a difference in mentality as far as my father, for example, when I was 6, when I finished the elementary school, he said, yes, that's it, enough. You know now how to read, how to write, you come and help me. I need help. I can't earn enough money to raise the family. And my mother said, over my dead body, he goes to study. And that happened with every one of the boys. The girls, they never worked anyway in Baghdad. It's only the boys who worked. We were a very poor family. We of course lived in a rented place. We had a small house, bedrooms on the floor, or the top floor, a living room downstairs, a roof, flat roof on the top. You live on the roof about 7 months a year. You always have beds there, iron beds. My brother and I, my brother Anwar, who was 2 years younger than me, he slept in the same bed. We slept together till the age of 17. We have 2 or 3 rooms, but they are small rooms. So Anwar and I one, the girls in one, and the parents in another. I remember, for example, you never wear your shoes in the morning before you take the shoe and empty it to see if there's a scorpion or something else that during the night came in. I used to do that afterwards when I came to Israel, out of habit, till slowly it went away. When I was, I think, about 9 or 10, when my father one day got some, like 500 pounds in a lottery, got a prize. That was a lot of money for us those days. And he says, now my luck is turning. He took the 500 pounds and then another 500 from our savings and wasted. Every single penny that we had went to buying the lottery every week. I remember a bathtub full of lottery paper every Friday. The Friday was the worst day for us because he was waiting to be the winner, and the results are none. And he says that because of my wife said something, or I said something, or ever, his luck changed. My mother didn't have what to do. She couldn't work. She has no money to buy food for 6 children. She went to knock on the doors of her brothers and sisters. No help. My father was not someone that can teach me can lead me into things. I had nobody to follow. I had to make my own. And I did. Everything I did. From day one, when I started going to school, I knew which one to choose, for what to learn from whom, to ask questions, and so on and so forth. And I had a father who didn't have money, and he didn't also understand the situation. For example, I remember when I wanted to learn how to ride on a bicycle, we didn't have a bicycle. So I begged some of my friends to give me a bicycle. And my father said, no, you don't ride a bicycle. It's safer to walk. Because he didn't ride on a bicycle. So I had to do it behind his back. My mother had a very simple kitchen, and she cooked. And there was a cat that comes through the roof, and whenever the cat smells some food, she sits and waits. And whenever my mother turns her back for doing something, she jumps and gets some of the food and runs away. And this happened months, and my father was getting angry. And then one day he said, I will kill this cat. And then one day after that, the cat had a piece of meat that was intended for him, and it was gone, and he was mad. He went to the cupboard, took a hammer, and he gave me the hammer, being I'm the eldest son, gave me the hammer. He said, "You go up the stairs, stand on the top of the stairs. I am going to wait for the cat. When she comes, I'll rush after her. She has nowhere to go but to go up. And you are standing on the top of this, hit her." Okay. He was running after the cat. The cat was going up the stairs. He's after the cat. I am standing there with the hammer. And instead of hitting her like this, I throw the hammer on her. But the hammer went straight on my father's nose, broke it. And you can imagine the blood that came out. Sitting on top of him, standing on top of him, my father saying, "My son killed me, my son killed me," screaming. The cat is gone. I never forget that because it's so traumatic for me. Now I can laugh about it. Thank God nothing happened to my father. I mean, it was done. His nose was repaired and everything was fine. But at that moment, it was awful. I went to school at the age of 7, stayed in the school till the age of 17, 18, the same school. There were 2 really good schools in Baghdad for Jewish schools. One was called the Shamash, where I was, and the other one called the Alliance Française, which was mostly French. My mother, who graduated from the Alliance, she said, for girls, French is a beautiful language. It's delicate, it's nice. English is for business. That's for the boys. So she sent us to Shamash. And then finally, the girls came with English and French, and we came out only with English. The Jewish community in Baghdad was over 100,000, 110,000. The inhabitants of Baghdad was probably 500,000. So we were quite the largest community. And the community was run by a committee, by a board, the Jewish board, and there was a rabbi, a chief rabbi, and there was a chairman of the board. And of course, these were all very rich people. Every house had 2 sets for Pesach and for this. They observed kashrut, very much so. Friday, not only candles. My mother prepared a beautiful table with candles, and we sang. We went always at the evening, we came to my father and we kissed his hand. And then sang Eshet Chayil Mi Imtza, and all by heart, everybody, and had the wine, the whole thing. Yom Kippur is Yom Kippur, the Chagim is Chagim, everything was fine. But there wasn't anything like you don't work on Shabbat, and some were more religious than others, but nobody really from like that. We were traditional, but not religious, really. The community catered for itself. Our own schools, our own teachers, our own markets, the whole thing, was between Jews. We saw very little of the Arabs, but of course we dealt with them. I mean, we all knew how to speak their language, which is a little different than, it's like Yiddish and German. The Iraqi Jewish language is different, but we didn't need even that. We can see from the way we look in the street, we know who is Jewish, who is not Jewish, and they know too, right away. We were always a second-class citizen, treated as second class. I mean, for example, my father, when I was 6, he said, if somebody, and Muslim and Arab, hits you, you don't hit back. And that's awful for a boy, yes? And when I was 9, I hit back because I was abused by somebody, and I hit back. And that evening, the family of that guy, about 4 big guys, Muslims, knocked on our door, took my father out, and beat him up so badly that I will never hit a Muslim again in Baghdad. I think when I was about 8, one of the bigger boys, 17 years old, he was a bodybuilder, which is very seldom in Baghdad. The Jewish boy would be a bodybuilder, but he was very strong. That was his hobby. School finished, everybody gone, and he was walking home out of the school. And then there was 2 soldiers. They were walking. They saw this Jewish boy. You know, they do that all the time. He took the arm of this guy who did it like this, and he broke it to the soldier, which is unheard of in Baghdad. The soldier started screaming, "A Jew broke my arm." To his bad luck, there was a lorry passing by with soldiers in it. They started jumping, come to catch the boy. The boy, where does he go? He runs back to the school because it was close. Tells the guard of the school, close the door behind me, and he ran to the headmaster. Now the headmaster was still there. So the headmaster told him, go to the theater. The school had a theater. And in theater you have this small hall where somebody helps the actors to remember. Hide in that hall. So the boy went and hid there. These soldiers started knocking on the door, and they threatened to break it unless it's opened. So the headmaster told the guard to open it. They came straight to the headmaster's office. They said to him, "Are they you or the boy?" He gave them where the boy is. They took the boy and they hit him so badly. He was, I think, a few weeks in coma, and he was fine at the end, but he was in danger of his life. He was hit very, very badly. His class the next day, the next morning, his class decided that the head teacher has to resign. And they asked him to resign, and he said no. So they declared no studies, nobody studies. They told everybody. Some of them called their families to bring sandwiches and so on and so forth. And nobody leaves the school till the head teacher leaves. The moment he leaves, he resigns. So for us, for the kids, were fantastic, you know. I mean, no school, sandwiches coming, fruits, strike, you know. Who knew what is a strike? So I remember that very well, because at the end, finally, the teachers were the ones who were encouraging us to do it. They were telling us behind his back, you know, go ahead, because it was very bad what he did. So he finally resigned. I was always the youngest in class. Always. I mean, not only the youngest, but the smallest in size. And because of that, I was sitting always in the front. Now, the only woman that taught us, a teacher, was Miss Bosenko. I remember her name, and I remember she was a British girl teaching us English. Very beautiful, always short skirt, which is unheard of in Baghdad. And her place always, she used to come and sit on the top of my bench. She sits on the top where I put my book. She sits there. She opens the book to read to us. And she plays with my hair, because I was so small. She plays with my hair and reading. And I remember that the kids, which I didn't understand why they do that, all the time threw things on the floor, then went down to pick it up and look around and peep up and laughing and so on. The other story was that I had hair which was very thick, like a horse's hair. And this part, which still today I think always stands up, this one, whatever is left of it. And then one of the boys in the class who are bigger than me and older, why don't you go and buy Brylcreem? So, till I got money from my mother, begging for days, till finally she gave me money to buy a Brylcreem jar. I took the jar in the morning, I stood in front of the mirror, and I took a little, I made like that, and it went down fine. I turned around to go out of the bathroom, I felt it's turned around, it's up. Oh, I didn't put enough. So let me put some more. I took a little more. To end the story short, by the time I left the bathroom, I already have half the jar there. Okay. Ms. Bosenko comes in the morning. She sits beside me. She plays with my hair, and then she turns a page of the book. When she turns the page, the whole book was greasy. She looks at me and she screams, "You did that on purpose." And I was so, I didn't know what to say. No, I didn't, this and that. You did. I'll never sit beside you again. So I remember that because I was really not guilty. But the boys were laughing at the school, in the class, and everybody, and so on. I'm sure she thought I really didn't like her playing with my hair. My mother was the engine in the family. And she was driving us. She used to send me to buy samoon, the small baguettes. And she says to me, listen, this guy, you trade with him. You shouldn't buy it for less, let's say, than 2, whatever it was. And I go there and I bargain with him, and he finally agrees on 2, and I says, no, I'm not taking it, and I come with less than 2. Very proud, coming like this, you see? And she says, you could have gotten it better. The way we were all raised is to try to be better, to compete. The competition is there to compete. And I can feel it in bridge, for example. Bridge is not with money. You're not playing with money. And I am competitive. I want to be the first. And when I see people like Becky, my wife, or people I play with, some of them, they don't care at all. And I consider this not a bridge. I mean, if you don't care whether you are doing the right, you did the right step, or you said the right thing, or you are the bottom or the top or the middle, then what's the game for? My mother, before she died, we used to play with her sheshbesh, We are all good players, the whole family. And we were playing for money, that the last winner is the one to win. My mother and I were left as the only 2. And my sisters and this, they tell me, let her win, let her win. And she was almost over 90. How can I let her win? It's not in me. It's not in me. I didn't let her win. My father, we used to play with him, and we used to play for money. But very little money. And he gets angry I get angry also when I lose. Everybody gets angry when we lose. But he gets more angry. And I remember one day when he lost to me, actually, he takes the wooden sheshbesh, the best one we have, and he takes it and hits it a few times till it's broken to pieces. I will never play again with anybody anymore, of course, till the next day, and we played again. But sheshbesh for us was the game. I must have been a merchant when I was still 6 years old. I used to play with the little money, whatever from our pocket money, what we get with the kids, and go and buy few things like candies and things like that. And if my sister wants something, I used to give it to her against our pocket money, and so on and so forth. So I made money on my brothers and sisters in order to have a little more money for myself. I mean, I'm ashamed to say it now, but I did it. Not really, it was fun, but I was the older one. I shouldn't do this. I was doing it because I needed this money to, you know what it is to try to play tennis. Who in our family played tennis? When I say our family, I mean my father's family. I'm talking the uncles and the aunts and the children. Who would play tennis? Who would dance? We were not in that area. But I was. How do I get a tennis racket? Second-hand one. How? The first club for young people, Jewish young people, was opened by the Alliance Française School. I somehow got myself into it. I was the only one who was not speaking French from all the Jewish boys and girls. I was the only one who didn't have enough money to buy a hamburger or a hot dog. But we played tennis, we danced. In my family, with the situation who would think about dancing? But I thought about dancing. I thought all about those things that are not within my reach. Somehow I did. I never let anyone know that I don't have money. There was this guy who was an Armenian, and he used to teach us how to dance, and then we danced. When it came to teach me how to dance the waltz, he told everybody, without my knowledge, to sit down. He wanted to make fun of me. He took me, with a stomach like this, and I'm a small boy like that, and the whole record, he turned me one side only, all the way. And then when the music finished, he stopped in the middle of the room, and he said, "Go back to your seat." And I realized everybody is watching because nobody was dancing. And the room was turning around like this, for me. But I don't know what kind of strength I had. I walked straight. I said, "I'll show them." And I went and I sat down on the stool, and to show them how good I am, it's nothing for me. We didn't have electric fans. We had a hand fan. So I took one of these and I did like this, And then everybody started laughing hysterically. And slowly, when the turning is starting to stop, I realized what I was doing. I didn't know where my head is, so I was doing like this. I started working at the age of 15 when I was in school. I used to go back from school, have something to eat, and run to work in a Jewish merchant place that needed help as a clerk for 3-4 hours a day. When I did something, then I have 6 others behind me who followed. So of course, when I learned how to dance, and I think I was a good dancer, I taught my daughters, my sisters, I taught my brothers. That's how it went, and so on. I think that everybody's in our situation in Baghdad, who had a mother like that, who wanted him to go up and up in life, wanted to finish school and go to university. But Jews were not accepted in universities in Iraq, unless you have money and you pay. We didn't have money. So the only way for us was, you see, the law at that time in Baghdad was that you finish school with, we call it baccalaureate, thanawiyah, which is same like Bagrut here, which is a government exam. The government guarantees for the first 3 in the whole country, it guarantees university education, free, on the government. So that's the only chance we had, or the hope we had. So I sat down and I studied really hard, really, really, really hard. And I got the number 2. And the reason why a Jew can get a number 2 is because there was no names in the tests. There were numbers. Otherwise, nobody would have gotten it. So I was the number 2. And the second happiest day of my life was when I got that letter from the government saying that we are sending you to the Oxford University to study English literature, and you come back to teach 4 years in the university in Baghdad. And everybody was happy, and we were dancing and screaming. Till the next day, my father and mother sat down and said they want to talk to me. And they said, Abraham, how can we let you go? Look at what your children, where your sisters and brothers are eating and what we are making and so on and so forth. We have been waiting for 18 years for you to come and help. We can't wait another 4 years. I knew that they are telling the truth. But I was dying to go. But I had no choice. So I declined the offer and I stayed and started working in a bank. Anwar, who was 2 years younger than me, as I mentioned, he also wanted to go to university. And of course, again, because I was the one who was before him, so it was always also a competition. He wants to do the same. And he has done a tremendous job. He not only did it, but he did it better than me. He became the first on the whole country. And he was sent to the University of Colorado to study mechanical engineering 2 years after me. And again, there was a kind of a semi-trial to ask him to stay and to help. But that time I was already a bread earner. I was already, the family was in a much better shape. And I said, over my dead body, he's going. But then we had a problem. The government wanted a guarantee of 5,000 dinars, which is 5,000 pounds. Those days was quite a lot of money. That he returns back after finishing the university to teach in Iraq. But where do we get a guarantee? So again, my mother went and knocked on the doors of her family. For them, it would have been just a piece of paper. It wasn't, not a bank guarantee or anything. And each one of them said, no, we are not sure he will come back. What if he doesn't come back? Finally, one of the cousins from her family, who was kind, he had some connections where he arranged that the government will accept my father's guarantee for £5,000. Of course, he didn't have 50, but they accepted the guarantee. So anyway, Anwar left, and I had my own bed finally. I had to start working, and I started working in the bank, which is called the Ottoman Bank. It's still, by the way, alive. It's an English bank. It has 100 workers, people to work there, 1 Englishman and 99 men, all Jews. Not one not Jewish, because we were the educated part. The bank, it was fun. I was the youngest. They put me in a department called the correspondence department. 12 people. Some of them could be my grandfather at the time. And I was given the job of opening the letters that we received, the bank received, registering them, and distributing them among the apartments. In 1941, in the middle of the war, the government in Iraq changed, and a guy called Rashid Ali became the prime minister. He made a pact with Adolf Hitler that he declares war, Iraq declares war in England, and that the German army will help Rashid Ali to stop any attack by the British. So Rashid Ali declared war on Great Britain. Great Britain sent a very small contingent from Palestine those days. Many of them were Jewish, to come to reconquer Iraq. Hitler didn't send any planes, didn't help him. His fighters were no fighters. They ran away from the British army. So within a couple of days, they were already at the outskirts of Baghdad. They stopped. They didn't go into the city. They made a deal with the prince at that time, as if that the prince has made a truce with the British army. Nobody lost the war. The war wasn't lost by the Iraqis. So they didn't go into the Baghdad, because to go as a conquering army into Baghdad would have been very bad for the feelings of the Iraqis. So they waited for 2 days till the Amir will come, and he will walk into the country with his own army, with the truce. But what happens in the meantime? There was no government. There was no army. There was no police. And there were Jews in the city. So they started the Farhud. The Farhud was pogrom, what we call. They started at the beginning. Any Jew who was in the street, beaten up, some of them killed. And then they started on the houses. My father took us all into the house, took one room, take all the furniture, everything in the room out of the room, completely empty, made sure that my mother doesn't have any jewelry, nothing on her, and opened the door. Luckily, the mob passed our house without touching us. Our natur, the local policeman, whom my mother used to pay regularly in order to accompany me on my way back home late at night, he stood opposite our house, convincing the mob that no Jews lived around there. It lasted a couple of days. And that's when the Jewish community woke up to find themselves strangers in a place where they thought they were the founders of the place. And some of them who had the money and so on left. After that, we, the young people, I mean, I was 12, but after that, after a few years, we started training with help from Israel. Training on weapons, and we said never again, we will not let them just go that way. And then, of course, then there was the imminent declaration of the Jewish state. And the Iraqis and the newspapers and the government, we will show the Jews, we'll send the army to crush Israel, but at the same time, the Jews, the traitors we have among us, we will show them. And we knew that this time it will be terrible, more, because now there is not only robbery, but there is hate. So we had a plan to gather the Jewish people in the Jewish area, put our people with weapons in various places and houses where it is of strategic importance, and to have a few people dressed as Muslims with hand grenades and so on, and to mix with them. But nothing happened. Nothing happened because they were afraid. They knew that now it's not. It will not be easy. They will be hurt too. They knew that. That's number one. Number two, they were worried of bombers coming to bomb Baghdad, and because the Jewish community was all gathered in a small area, this is the safest place to be in if the bombs are coming. So everybody started to gather around the Jewish area to be safe from the Jewish bombs. And then suddenly one day in 1950, we woke up in the morning, and there was no television those days, only radio. And there was a communique from the government saying that as of this day, all Jews of Iraq have no more Iraqi nationality. They are stateless. Any of them who wants to leave the country to Cyprus should come and register in this and this place. They will have to leave as soon as we can arrange for them to leave. All the property is frozen. Any Muslim who will deal with Jews will be prosecuted. Every Jew is supposed, when he leaves, he can take with him a list of things like one pajama, one pair of shoes, one blah, 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 50 pounds, and so on. I was very upset because I felt that this is our place more than their place. We came even before them. And that to have the audacity to one morning just to say, from today you are no more Iraqis, you are stateless. We will give you a laissez-passer if you like, if you apply for it. This wasn't, or never was something that we thought that it could come to that. And why? It's only because we are Jews and because of Israel. Everything started after really 48. You know, Jews have lived in Iraq for over 2,000 years, since about 580 BC. We lived under the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Muslims, the Mongols, and lately the Ottomans and the British. We survived all these, but not the Arab nationalism. One of the greatest accomplishments of Iraqi Jews is, of course, the Talmud, which was written for over 200 years and was completed 600 AD, right before the Muslim invasion. So, of course, all of us wanted to leave. After the 1941, we wanted to leave, and people started by tens of thousands registering, and 110,000 registered. Now, planes were arranged by the United States to come at night to pick us up, to take us to Israel, not to Cyprus. But the planes those days were small constellations. That how many can they take, even with no chairs and everybody on top of each other? But still, it took a long time. It took more than 2 years to take them all. The law that came out for that effect forbade anyone who had any obligation to the government to leave, and forbade doctors and lawyers, Jewish doctors, Jewish lawyers, to leave the country. The country needs them, they have to stay. The rest can go. So, of course, most of the doctors and the lawyers, they didn't want to stay. They somehow arranged for themselves to go through the border to Iran, where in Iran the Jewish agency already arranged to have them transported to Israel. My father, if you recall, had a guarantee to the government. So he was one of the ones who had obligations to the government. He was forbidden to go. And we had big discussions with me. He wants to go, and I said, no, you don't go, because you are old, and if they catch you, it's 7 years without trial. And after 7 years in Iraqi jail, at your age, you will not come out alive from there. What will happen to Anwar if he comes? Let him finish his studies, come back, and let him walk through the border to Iran. Why should you do that? I'm not allowing it. But I finally realized he's going to do it anyway. I heard that he was looking around. So then I asked my friends who were going anyway, some doctors who were going through the border, please, can I ask you to take my father with you? And that's how I arranged for him to go. My father walked with them, and they go to Basra, and from then Shatt al-Arab is to cross the river and then to walk for a couple of days. And during this walk, they stole them, but they didn't touch them. They took everything away from them. When they arrived to Persia, to Iran, the Jewish agency man was waiting before coming into the camp where they stay. And they said to my father, come, you see this woman? This is your wife, her name is so-and-so. You see these 4 men? These are your sons. They are all Persian, but they are not. They are your sons and your wife. All of you came from Baghdad, and you are on the way to Israel. You take them with you to Israel. And the reason for that is that the law in Persia at the time was that you are not given a passport to leave the country unless you serve in the army first. Only after that you can leave. And of course, these boys didn't want to serve in the army, and the Jewish agency needed them in Israel. So that's the way it was done. So my father came first, actually, to Israel. I don't know, for some reason, the Iraqi government realized about a week immediately that he is gone, because immediately they stopped the money to Anwar. And the university realized suddenly that they have not so many students who are taking and doing well so they gave him a job of a library or something, and they kept him, and he finished university and became an American citizen. Actually, he went to the army in order to become an American citizen right away. And he stayed there. Now, not everybody registered. The Jewish people who had money, lots of money, they can't leave the money and go. They applied for the Iraqi nationality again, and they were accepted. I think there were about 15,000 of them. They stayed in Baghdad and stayed from the 1950s till the middle of the 1970s, 25 years, in order to close their businesses, take their money out somehow, slowly, and somehow get out. Now, I was still working in the bank, and the bank was supposed to give £50 to each person who is leaving, according to the law that was announced all over the world to show how generous the Iraqis are. But the bank received instructions from the government that we give £50 only after we see the laissez-passer of the person who is traveling. The laissez-passer, however, was given to the person who was traveling at the airport when he's leaving. So obviously there was no £50 to anybody. And then the Jewish community found itself in a dilemma, what to do. Everybody has money, and what to leave the money in Iraq? So they came to the bank and went to the manager with the senior staff that we had in the bank, the Jewish staff, and convinced the manager to open a branch in the airport in Baghdad. The planes were coming at night and leaving at night, so the branch has to work only at night. So the bank manager decided to open it on two conditions. One condition is that his employees will work there free of charge. And two, that the community guarantees the safety of the money, that in case the money is stolen on the way between the bank and this, then this. And that's what they did. So we started having a shift of 3 people each night to work in the airport. And I being the youngest, of course, I did more than the other people were married and so on. And then we started realizing that not everybody has £50, while somebody else has much more than 50. So how to do that? So the Jewish agency arranged that the crew on the plane received the money, the checks that doesn't belong to the guy, and the Jewish agency will return it in Israel to the people who really paid the money. So it was working fine till the night when I was working, this guy who came with 7 members of his family, and he said he doesn't need any check because he doesn't have money. Fine, I said to him, here, there's a check in your name for 350 dinars. When you come to the plane, after the plane is in the air, after the plane is leaving the air, remember that, give it to the stewardess. Fine, took it. On the plane, as usual, a policeman comes up, checking everybody's laissez-passer, asking them a few questions. And when they came to this stupid guy, asking him, is there anything to declare? He said no. And then he looks, the policeman, at his laissez-passer, and it's written at the back that he received a check for £350. He says, but why do you say you don't have? Because you have £350. He says, yes, but that's not mine. I have to give it to the girl. Who gave it to you? The young man in the bank. the stewardess heard it and immediately jumped out of the plane to tell me, get out, leave right away. So I went and I hid for a few days. And it was imperative that I should leave the country. But our, queue in the flights were a few months later. And we knew that in a few months they will catch me for sure, and I won't be able to leave. So my mother went to the rabbi, and through the rabbi they found a family that didn't have the money to buy the tickets, although the numbers are already, the queue is already there. So we paid for their passage. I got married with one of the girls called Daisy. She was my supposedly wife. The rabbi made the papers and work and all that. And we flew with Daisy and the family to Israel. The plane was for me something special, and going over the sea and seeing the sea, and I get off the plane and there were buses. There was a bus who took us to Shar Aliyah, and there they had a big line of pkidim, of clerks, who asked us questions of name and so on and this and that. So we are in Shar Aliyah, and there was suddenly an announcement on the loudspeaker in all languages saying that there's a bus that's going to Haifa this evening at this and this time, returning at this and this time. It's free. If anyone wants to come, they should go to this and this place. So I said to myself, what am I supposed to do? I have nothing to do, I'll go. So I go to the Haifa with the bus, and we went to Hadar, which is in the middle of the mountain, and I went out from the bus and started walking in the street, and I couldn't believe it. All around me were Jews. Oh, the policeman is Jewish, the soldier is Jewish. I don't have to worry to look back who is behind me. I can do anything I want. I can answer anything I say. That was the happiest day of my life. There was nothing happier. I felt like goose pimples over my body. And I was walking in the street so happy and looking around at the buildings, and for me everything was so beautiful and clean, and suddenly this old woman comes to me and asks me a question in a language I never heard before. And I say to her in English, I'm sorry, I don't understand. And she repeats that angrily again. And I said, sorry, madam, but I don't understand what you are saying. This woman started screaming her own language. Ah! And people started gathering around us. And they asked her, what's it all about? And she was telling them. Of course, I didn't understand. But afterwards, I was told. She was telling them that this guy doesn't understand Yiddish. And the way he looks so dark, he is definitely an Arab. What is an Arab doing here in Israel? So they started laughing and told her, listen, half of Haifa are Arabs. So what? And this is not Arab. Half of the Jews don't speak Yiddish. So this is how I was introduced to the Yiddish language. I never knew it existed before, really never. Living in Baghdad those days was pressure. You are worried that somebody will knock on your door and it's a policeman taking you and you will never come back. Walking in the street, if you touch somebody by mistake or this, then you can get a slap in the face and you can't return it back. Anyone can say, a Jew did this, and then suddenly everybody is against you. You are always on guard. You are always worried. You are a stranger. You know you are a stranger. You know this is not although it's your country, but it's not your country. But at that time, we didn't know about Israel much. I mean, we knew Israel, we know the news and everything, yes. But really that we belong to Israel, never thought of it before. And so for me, it was the surprise that I belong, that this is mine. Everything is mine. It changes the way I looked at a tree or at a building, at the people in the street. If somebody will touch me, I can touch him back. If somebody will curse me, I can curse him back. This never happened before. And so it's freedom of thought. It's not a freedom that I am out of jail. It's freedom of being like somebody else, not different, not second degree. I am the same as somebody else. Like all these people. They are not better than me. I'm not better than them. I'm like them. I'm one of them. And this I never felt before.